Hello again. So if you've been following my channel, you know I've been suffering with anxiety and panic attacks. And I started doing this video log because at the onset of it, I really felt like I was alone in dealing with this. Um, there was a lot I didn't understand. And if you found my video, hopefully you've learned something about window periods and a little bit about what anxiety can do to you. Again, I'm by no means an expert, and this is just a direct account of what I've been experiencing. So, last time I left off, I started taking an antibiotic for sinus infection. My last negative test was 105 days, which is well beyond the 90-day mark. As the pendulum swung, I felt good for a couple of days, but what I noticed was that the feel-good feeling didn't last very long. So the pendulum started to swing back to the darker side of the spectrum, and I think much like a drug user, my body was addicted to either the real highs or the real lows. So I've been working really hard in maintaining my routine to get out of that, essentially, to get out of that cycle, to break that cycle. So I tested again at 136 days, again negative, and this time I essentially conducted the test myself with the technician, which kind of brings to light one of the points I wanted to talk about today. So when I was there at the clinic, and this was just a walk-in clinic, the technician actually handed me a printed form from the CDC, dated 2003. And since then, there's been a lot of changes. The CDC has made a lot of changes. And if I wasn't in the know, and I would have been somebody else essentially receiving that data, that could have been detrimental. So I kind of schooled her on current recommendations from the CDC, which is after 90 days, your tests are conclusive. So essentially, the virus does not hide in your blood. It just doesn't happen like that. So if you think, and really you can't base your diagnosis on symptoms. You just have to get tested, is what it comes down to. So I've been tested now 4 times, and after this last one, I started seeing like the concern I had with what was going on with my back, like the rash, that went away, the blotches on my leg, it was hives from the anxiety. So as the anxiety is abated, so has a lot of the symptoms that I've been suffering from, with the exception of the dizziness, which I feel from time to time. And really what it is the brain, my brain may still be, my body may still be going through the fight or flight, still trying to create those feelings and releasing those chemicals into my system, and as a byproduct, I just feel these things sometimes. So until as I kind of balance out, hopefully that'll abate. I did have a sinus infection, but overall, I learned since my last video. I learned something else really, really important. So I'm on a journey of mental health. Is what I'm working through. I actually had someone reach out to me. They shot me an email, and I think it's just easier if I kind of read through it. So I'm not going to be using any names or anything like that. But he goes, "Hello, sir. I've been waiting for someone to post videos on this struggle, as I've been going through the same trauma for over a year now. And I've seen several other videos on YouTube myself that where people are essentially dealing with HIV phobia, which is not a clinical diagnosis, but it is essentially a phobia. I mean, it really upended my life, and it's a cocktail of not having appropriate information, outdated information, fear of the unknown. For me, it had to do with control. There was just so many aspects of it that really kind of played a part. So he's been going and dealing with the struggle for over a year now. He says his exposure date was March of 2018, and been tested multiple times for free, and was recently tested with a 4th gen test on June 21st, and the results were negative. He said he's experienced all types of HIV-related symptoms: swollen lymph nodes everywhere, itchy rash on torso 1 week after exposure, etc. So like I never, what's interesting is like a lot of, I've looked at thousands of photos of HIV rash, and It doesn't. They don't believe they itch. I just think it's a rash. Again, I I don't know, but he said itchy rash on his chest. And then the lymph nodes, I didn't get swollen lymph nodes either. I didn't have like those flu-like symptoms. Mine were more acute because I didn't really know what the symptoms of HIV were, so my mind kind of fabricated what it wanted, whatever kind of worked. Please get back to me because I wish to start a campaign on why they're lying to us. So this, I think, is kind of the phobia part of it as well. You convince yourself at some point when dealing with this that essentially the tests are wrong and everything else is wrong. And that's, like I had said earlier in some of the earlier videos, I kind of felt like I was losing my mind, but I knew I wasn't being rational. And at some point you stop knowing that you're not being rational and you're being irrational, and your fears are irrational. So he says he had no further exposure since March of 2018. Well, I responded to him. This was my response. If you had no further exposure since March of 2018, you are negative. You don't have it. HIV doesn't hide in your blood. I said I didn't trust the technician after I tested at 105 days, and now having tested again and essentially conducting the test myself, I'm confident that I'm negative. CDC says the 4th gen tests conducted after 90 days of exposure are conclusive. Conclusive means beyond a reasonable doubt, definitive. That's just what it means. HIV is a virus, so it presents itself like many viruses that can cause you to get sick. So if he's been dealing with this over a year and anxiety has been destroying his, kind of tearing him up inside, he's more susceptible to just getting sick because anxiety can cause breakdown in your immune system. I mean, it's just one of those things that can happen. So we talked a little bit, I talk a little bit about what the CDC, and mind you, the CDC being extremely conservative, right? Like if they put out, after 30 days under these specific conditions, especially here in the US with litigation, there's just no way. They're going to be over conservative. If they were not confident in saying 90 days, then they would have just said, a year or indefinitely, because they know that they open themselves up to civil litigation when they put, documents out there. So they got to be on top of their game. Obviously, so I talked a little bit to him, about having the anxiety. I said I'm still having serious anxiety. That itself is really bad. It causes diabetes, heart disease, several other things. And I told him, you tested enough. I says, if you added yearly testing to your physical, that's probably more than enough. I said, I'm going to do it from now on myself, which I am. I'm just, because I want to get over maybe as a tool to help me, defeat this anxiety. So I went on just to kind of be a little more supportive. I'm not going to read too much of that. I said, best of luck to you and your journey. I said, when I say 4th gen test, I'm referring to, so he responds back and he sends me a photo of his test, and it's a test, the Alere AGAB 4th gen test, and it's negative. You can see it in the photo. He says he wasn't sure if the fact that it was rapid made it less effective. And no, that doesn't make it less effective, because what they do when you go to your doctor's office and they draw your blood and they send it to the lab, that's what they're putting it on, the 4th gen test. So it's just blood from your vein as opposed to the finger prick. And if that tests positive, then they test again. They're at the lab. So it's not like if you do a home test yourself, you test positive, you then got to go to a lab and have them tested, okay? Because it might have been operator error or something like that. So I said, no, the fact that it's rapid does not make it less effective. It's the same test they do, so just pretty much what I said. So I also told him about some YouTube videos that kind of helped me, and if you punch into your YouTube search, positive alert, Alere 1st gen test, so if you're looking for what the positive result looks like, it flashes really fast. I mean, the blood sample goes on, and within seconds, the positive markers, because there's 3 separate spaces, and one's a control, and then you have the AGAB portions of it, and they flash really quick. So I know they have you wait 20 minutes, or some will say 30 minutes, but I think it's 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. You're not supposed to read the results after 30 minutes, but in that 20 minutes, that thing flashes. I mean, within a few seconds, it flashes really daggone quick. I told him that that's some peace of mind. I said the tests are designed to be extremely sensitive. When they talk about percentages of accuracy, they're referring to false positives, not negatives. The only time you can get a negative is if you have not reached the time frame that the virus starts multiplying, which doesn't take long. It's within 14 days from the infection to 6 weeks max. 20% of the population ever actually show any symptoms anyway. Every person that knows their shit about HIV says never diagnose based on symptoms. So that's just the big thing. The only thing you'll ever tell you if you have HIV, if you're HIV positive, is if you test. And I just reiterated to him that he's negative, especially based on the photo he sent me, unless you had any other possible vectors of transmission since your last test. So I go on and tell him I'm not perfect. I'm still dealing with the anxiety. And after his first message, my anxiety started taking over, and I needed to refer to some of my affirmation videos, which I've been working on moving away from. So I'm probably watching 1 or 2 a day, still affirmation videos on time frames and window periods. But I have listened to current posts from doctors around the world that specialize in HIV, and that's the big thing is when you're doing your internet searches, YouTube, and you're make sure you're looking at current data. Because if you're not looking at current data, I mean, if it says anything more than a couple months or a year, I don't even bother looking at it. Honestly, I won't, because I mean, just like the technician that day tried handing me a document from 2003 that said you had to test again at 6 months. You know, I mean, I would have chewed myself up. You know, I would have been in the same spot with anxiety driving me crazy, waiting for the 6-month mark. And it's just because, and then that doubled probably, you know, because I'm still thinking I'm going to get tested again. Well, outside of the year, that's just the anxiety at 6 months. Anyway, so I just explained how just the conversation having with him, you know, started jump-starting my anxiety, and I actually had a pretty good couple days up to this conversation. And let me go on to the next page here. So he expresses his appreciation, his response. He talks about he spends all day navigating through HIV forums and constantly chatting with people who are HIV positive off of Kick Messenger, still not able to get over his irrational fear. He says, I'm always getting different information. He wishes to speak with me over the phone because he thinks it will help. So at first I was like, sure, you know, let's talk. I mean, this guy is going through what I'm going through. But it wasn't a good night for me to talk, and I'm kind of glad it happened that way. In his response, he says he had an intercourse with a person who was HIV positive status wasn't aware of on March. So he wasn't aware of the other person's HIV positive status. I don't know if he found out later that he was HIV positive or not, but or maybe he just wasn't aware of their status. He says, yes, it was the most risky sex possible, so high risk exposure. He says 1 week later, developed a rash. I ran both sides of my torso and stomach. So he just goes on to symptoms: itchy, red, raised lesions. What made this rash stand out more than anything was the fact that it was incredibly itchy, and I remember feeling tingling sensations. Tingling sensations is anxiety does it to you. I mean, it'll cause hot spots and all that. So if he started worrying about it then, that's anxiety. I've come to the conclusion that he feels he has it. I know that feeling. Every test I've gone in for, I'm like, this is it. I got it. Look at everything I'm dealing with right now. I have it. And then I don't, you know, and the tests don't lie. And I've even found sites where they say, you know, then there's something else going on. I had a sinus infection. You know, that's what was causing the you know, the pressure in my ears. I'm still, like I said, dealing with a little bit. So his rash eventually cleared. He had his last sexual encounter in the month of June. He says, so he's just dealing with, over the year, he started finding separate symptoms. This is the other thing, they don't happen like that. It's not like you get a rash and then a couple months later your lymph nodes start going, and then a couple months later you end up with like oral thrush or, you know, whatever else you can imagine. It happens at like the same time. You know, you either get so sick or this rash covers your whole body. You know, it's something that's going to bring you into the doctor's office. And the people I've talked to, that's what it's been. So it's going to be something that brings you into the doctor's office, and at that point, you know, you're going to test. It's not like it's just you're going to get one symptom, then later on another symptom. His groin lymph nodes were incredibly swollen. And here's the other thing with lymph nodes. So like, if you start poking around with them and messing around with them, they're gonna get swollen. That's just gonna happen. Or if you have any type of infection, your lymph nodes just, that happens to them, they swell. He received testing, came back negative. He says, may I remind you, every day I've had the impression I was HIV positive. I abstained from sex from July 2018 to February 2019. In between this period, I believe I had at least 30 rapid tests done, probably more, and 1 blood draw test, all negative. At this point, I was almost assured I was HIV positive until recently in March I had sex with one of my ex-girlfriends who became really sick 10 days after unprotected. She told me she suspected I gave her something, so I got tested multiple times after the rapid test, all negative. Ever since then, I couldn't stop worrying. I've been constantly seeing AIDS everywhere I go. So I see what the trigger here was for him. So he had a girlfriend that felt that he gave her something, not knowing that he'd already been fighting with this anxiety, and that just triggered him again. So he started feeling like, well, maybe I did give her something. But at this point, he, having tested as much as he did, he doesn't have any confidence in the tests. I felt the same way. But facts are facts, man. I mean, it is what it is. The facts don't lie. So he's going to get tested again in June 10th, discuss his HIV test results. Rapid test June 19th, June 26th, accept, but results. I mean, he must be dumping a lot of money into these things too. He's worried they're going to come back positive. I mean, so was I. When I was doing the last test at 136 days, I'm standing there like, my eyes burning through that test strip, just looking at it, waiting to make sure that there was, is that a line? Is that a line coming up, popping? No, okay, that's not a line. All right, because the control even flashes really damn quick once the material hits it, that portion of the paper. And then I respond to him, sorry about the late response without my family. Your test in June is accurate. Transmission female to male is very difficult, which it is. And they actually have percentages out there, so just find that and take a look at it. I talked to him about Jennifer Vaughn. I don't know if you follow her or have watched her videos, but she's a tremendous inspiration. She's HIV positive. She's promotes U equals U, which is essentially where undetectable is untransmittable. She just got married. Just a beautiful person, beautiful, beautiful person. Go check her videos out, and you can learn so much. And she really helped me get through some of my more darker days where I was more uncertain. She lives an amazing, incredible, beautiful life. She's a surfer, skater girl, got an awesome skater husband, and because I skate, so and I pretend to surf, but I try. But so I can really relate to her, and she's still doing everything that I do now, and that really made me feel good. Because even if I had come back positive, I knew there was life after. It wasn't really going to change anything besides me taking a pill a day, and going to the doctors every 3 months or every 6 months, depending. So I told him I had been out, and then so let me kind of find my place here. Sorry about that. I really want to just get to the response. So at this point, he really wants to talk to me over the phone. But here's the other part of this, which was a big lesson learned for me. I said I was going to call, and then had second thoughts. I realized I'm getting a contact high off your anxiety, and I was. I was like looking at my emails, waiting for him to respond. I was trading one drug essentially for another, one other fix. I says, there really is no other way that I can explain it. I'm definitely not healthy mentally right now, and I've essentially shared all the healthy data and links I have found. I said, if we spoke, it could easily start to mimic symptoms that you describe, which I've done in the past. It's already happened to me several times in the past. For example, Jennifer talks about vertigo in one of her videos, vertigo. But by that same evening, I was dizzy and still dizzy, dealing with dizzy spells. It's the anxiety, and every time I start feeling dizzy, I'm like, oh, what's that? Is that HIV? So it would be healthy for us to essentially share anxiety stories. Maybe in a few months, I'll be better. and can entertain more of this conversation. Unfortunately, since your first message, I've been sliding backwards, which I was. My mental health is a pendulum that I don't want to provoke. I'm sorry. You aren't alone in your struggle. Only I can't help anyone any more than I already have. Keep your strength up and keep watching Jennifer's videos, because the reality is that HIV won't kill you, even if you did have it, which you don't. Your anxiety, stress, and panic will, if you don't get them under control, definitely kill you. Be strong, my friend. So, I'm sure if you've come across my HIV phobia videos, you're dealing with this, but there are really simple facts here. So, CDC says anything after 90 days is conclusive. So, just keep that in mind. Go get tested. Symptoms don't account for it. But I just want to kind of touch back on it. So I essentially was, it would have been like two drug users getting together, right? Like two drug users in rehab getting together, but one still has some dope, you know, or has the means of getting that high. And then I was just gonna like be in the room and get that contact high. I don't know how else to explain it. It just would not have been healthy if I had to continue that conversation. So I won't be, I'll field any other emails I get, but I won't be committing the time to them. I won't be able to provide anything more than the facts, essentially what you see in my videos or what you can possibly research. So Jennifer Vaughn, again, go follow her and get your learn on, and have safe sex, and be careful with hypodermic needles, and be aware of your environment, and hope you all have a good day.